Perfectly staged.
Okay, everyone here at the Investing Stuff You Should Know podcast, we have a super exciting guest with us today, David Roy Newby. David Roy Newby is a legacy coach to top entrepreneurs that want to forge lasting legacies of success by wielding the wisdom of King Solomon. I love King Solomon. I love all the kings there. The same wisdom, and I'm reading here from David's his intro that they provided for me. So this is I love this the way he's going with this. The same wisdom that he used to build a 4 trillion fortune with his enterprises. As a popular speaker, David shares the stage with thought leaders, billionaires, and even royalty, including Robert Kiyosaki, David Green from Hobby Lobby, and the Rockefellers. He is the founder of the world's most exclusive billionaire fraternity, the Solomon Wisdom Society, and the author of multiple books that have been on bookshelves since 2006, including his recent #1 bestseller, Beyond Billions. David, thank you for being with us.
Johnny, my pleasure. I appreciate you having me.
This is super exciting, man. So you and I are part of a mastermind, fun mastermind, and a lot of people jump into that, and they have different motivations to get into that. They're like, you have this network of billionaires and the people you've connected with. What motivated someone at such a mingling with such people, with that kind of people, to join a group that humble Johnny is part of? Share that disconnection right there.
Well, I grew up on welfare. So, in the Chattanooga, Tennessee, in the mountains, I used to have a very thick Chattanooga accent as a little kid. So, sort of like America is full of Horatio Alger stories, the rags to riches. But for me, I didn't really seek to be around a bunch of billionaires, and I basically sought wisdom. I have a lot of foolish forefathers. So the opposite of foolishness is wisdom. And so I started to really read the books of Proverbs and Ecclesiastes. A guy sat down with me when I was 19 and read Proverbs chapter 1 with me and said, look, like, you're a super talented guy. You could really benefit from next level wisdom in your life. So in my journey of seeking wisdom, I, saw a lot of people don't realize, but I would study billionaires, but a lot of people don't realize King Solomon in today's money was worth $4 trillion. Like, to give you a perspective of that, that's all of the 400 richest Americans combined.
That's incredible. I never thought about that. Never thought about putting a value on that, on the kind of gold that they talk about in the Bible there, of how much he had, and they list out extensive. But yes, holy smokes, yes, that's incredible.
Right. So yeah, I'm always learning. I mean, it won't matter. It won't matter if I've talked to 117 billionaires in the last 4 years. So that's very humbling, right? Like, as I got more open and more humble and shared more of my family journey with people, I started getting invited to speak at conferences with 100+ billionaires in their room. Got invited to 3 or 4 of those.
Is that if I could just ask a quick question there, David, is that a theme, do you think? Is that a personality trait, if you would, about people that make it to the highest levels of success, at least from the, the checkbook, the checking account? Is that very very open sharing and genuine sense? Is that something that you've seen in them, or is that not am I projecting a trend that perhaps isn't there?
Well, that's a great question, Johnny. There's 99% of people who get in front of a billionaire, they want to talk to them about business stuff. Yes. And so I like to be a contrarian. I'm like, what do I like to talk about? I moved 47 times growing up before I turned 18. So I would just learn how to quickly build rapport and really get to know someone and let them know I care about them as a person, not about their money and their accomplishments. And so I just basically really chose, I'm going to show up differently when I interact with people. So for me, like, the one thing I noticed about billionaires that they have in common is curiosity. Like, this is why I joined Black Card, why I joined all kinds of different groups. Wisdom, there's a lot of, I quote Solomon's teachings all the time.
Yes.
Says, there's wisdom in a multitude of counselors, and in a multitude of wise counselors, victory is assured when it comes to business strategy. A couple other his teachings are humility comes before honor, but pride comes before a fall. So FTX, perfect example. Talk about pride coming before a fall. So
yeah,
to me, being humble is like, you seek to be around people who are curious and always seeking next level excellence. And in the business world, that happens to be billionaires today. And also, you can learn from anybody. You can learn from a 22-year-old just starting out in business. I just had dinner the other week here in Metro Detroit, where I live, with like a 21-year-old and a 25-year-old who are both like very focused and entrepreneurial. And actually it was very, I got as much out of it as to say that they did, us having a dinner that they invited me to, just being encouraged to see people that young that are that focused on making a positive impact in the world. So
Amazing.
it doesn't matter whether it's a homeless person on the sidewalk. Like I know homeless people in my wife's hometown in the Philippines, and I am actually helping them out financially, or whether it's, Elon Musk, like they're both people. So I just want to build connection, talk about things of lasting value, which is like relationships, family. What are you building? What are you doing to impact the world? So
Amazing.
being curious and being humble. These are like two foundational keys, I think, to success into next level innovation in whatever you're doing, whether it's being a better father or being a better mother or being a better spouse or looking to do great things in your business career.
Yeah, curiosity and humility. That's wonderful, man. You had shared, David, a very powerful brief, of course, message, kind of introduction within our mastermind group. Would you be able to just kind of recount, I guess maybe just give that story, that live story you've shared, like you just mentioned pre-show, you'd share this into some large groups and that's gotten you into some other areas. Could you share some of that history that you've been, we all have family stories or many that we're ashamed to say or mention, or even our own proclivities. Could you share some of that with the audience?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I realized in 2012 when I was in the Philippines, I published my second book in the Philippines called Treasure Islands, how to buy and safely sell gold and silver in the Philippines. And so I published a book over there. I was doing national TV publicity, and what was supposed to be a 2.5, 3 months max business trip. And I've been there 10 times. I speak the language. My wife and I go like every few years together with our sons. It was supposed to be a 2.5, 3 month trip. I was there 7 months. And my wife and my sons came over for a month, but 6 of those 7 months I was complete without my wife and my sons. And this one day, this guy threatened to kill me out in the jungle, working on a $500 million gold deal. And like, everybody carries guns in that part of the Philippines. And
Okay, wow.
he could have just shot me and left me in the jungle, and no one had ever found me. Some wild animals would have eaten me and had a snack on me. And so I got back to my hotel and I'm like, why am I taking these big risks in business? And I realized it was a feeling of not being good enough. It was trying to prove myself to my stepdad, who told me he wouldn't adopt me at age 7, and my father, who's not on my birth certificate. So from 2012 till now, I went on a real healing journey of my heart. But part of what that was admitting to myself all the mistakes that I had made. I did 12-step work, and really just forgiving the past, forgiving myself, forgiving people who had harmed me. And I realized that, my father figures, I had a really deep wound in my heart related to lack of affirmation. Because my number one love language, if you've ever read the book, 5 Love Languages.
I love that book. Yes.
Love language is words of encouragement. Number 2 is physical touch. And, I just did not get words of encouragement and affirmation from my father figures. And so I was trying to fill that desire for affirmation by doing multi-million-dollar deals and buying a Lamborghini and publishing a book and going on TV and radio and doing publicity and all these things. What was driving me at a heart level was being wounded. So looking at my life, like my father figures, actually going back 3 generations, murdered people, murdered family members. So by God's grace, I was trying to kill animals as a kid. And one day when I was 5, I was watching this cat drown that I had thrown in the sewer, and I'm like all gleefully watching it drown. And some guy jumped in the sewer in the raw sewage, and like some dude was working on the system and had opened a manhole. So I grabbed this cat and threw it down in there. And my mom realized, like, she knew about this family pattern. She's like, this is the spirit of murder. Like, I'm going down that violent path.
Wow, man.
So she made me memorize every Bible verse about how to deal with anger productively. And she also, I got 150 spankings that day. That's how many it took before I would apologize for trying to kill the cat. Like, I wanted that cat to die.
Yeah.
So my mother realized that I wasn't some evil kid. It was this family pattern that had been passed down onto me that she was dealing with. And so I really thank God for her wisdom, despite growing up, around murderers herself, to make sure I didn't go down that path. I'm very, very blessed.
That's powerful, man. That's so powerful.
That was like a breaking of a pattern, but it was next level. It wasn't until I was 26 and my son was 9 months old, and I almost killed him. And my mom divorced my stepdad like 6 months after he told me he wouldn't adopt me. He caused my mom to miscarry my second brother. He tried to kill both of my brothers, my half brothers that were his kids. And so my first brother lived, he was born 3 months early, lived 3 months in the neonatal ICU. They told my mom, don't even name this kid, he's going to die. But my mom told him, your name is Marcus. Like, I'm going to see you when you're ready to come home. And then my second brother, he did successfully kill my second brother. So like just that level of foolishness of father figures. I thought, well, I'm in the clear. I'm not related to this guy. He's my stepdad, right? I didn't know about my grandfather and great grandfather. So on this day when my son is 9 months old, only
I have a seven. This is very powerful, man, because I have a 7-month-old right now. So yeah, but please,
yeah,
it's our first kid. So
yeah, my son was my first son. My wife goes to work midnight shift. And I told the story, by the way, to 150 people at the Harvard Club in Boston. I never told anybody except my mom. And then I talked to my son and, told him about the family pattern. And I went and told the world. So it's like, my wife goes to work midnights, only night she ever worked midnight shift. My dad is sleeping at my house, only night he ever slept at my house, because he lived way up in the northern suburbs of Detroit. And I lived right near the city and next to this hospital he was going to the next day.
yeah.
And my son just wouldn't stop crying. Like for like half hour, he was crying nonstop. And what do you do when you're a little kid? I change his diaper. He's still crying. I feed him. I burp him. Still crying. I check his temperature, make sure there's no fever or discomfort. Nothing wrong. Still crying. I was getting exasperated, Johnny. I was like, what am I supposed to do here?
Yeah.
The fear of embarrassment, of looking bad, like I didn't know how to take care of my kid and my dad, led me to start to like hold myself up against my chest and be like, son, be quiet. You're going to wake up grandpa.
Yeah.
And I was holding up against my chest longer and longer. Then I realized I had a moment of clarity. I'm like, this is how people smother their kids.
Oh my gosh,
frustration can turn into anger. And the next thing you know, they've smothered their kids. So
Yeah.
I changed his diaper a second time. And I checked his diaper again, and somehow he was wet again in the midst of all the other feeding and burping and checking his temperature. And then he finally stopped crying. But I told my mom, and I called my mom the next day, and I'm like, I'm not related to my brother's dad. So what the hell was this about last night? You were never violent.
Were you scared? Were you scared when you realized that, David? Did you scare yourself?
Oh, I was very scared. Yeah, I just like went to bed and I'm like, God have mercy, like help me figure this out, because I do not want to be a violent person. I do not want to be like my stepdad. That was my only frame of reference. Do want to be like my stepdad.
Yeah.
Called my mom the next day and I'm like, Mom, what the hell was this? And she's like, oh, that's the spirit of murder. Your grandfather choked your grandmother in front of me when I was 8 years old, choked her to death. And your great grandfather killed your great grandmother. And I'm like, when the hell were you going to tell me this? That was the most pissed I've ever been at her in my life, was that moment.
Yeah.
So that led me on a whole journey of
from that story. Just real quick. Sorry. From that story, real quick. Do you feel that kind of sharing of that kind of really? I mean, it's kind of like embarrassing, but very, I don't know, scary. Faults, proclivities, sins, if you would, of past family members. Do you think that's really important to share with your children from that just from that story?
Because another one of Solomon's teachings is you can perish for lack of vision, or you can perish for lack of knowledge. Now, I and most entrepreneurs have no lack of vision, but I was literally, as a father, perishing for lack of knowledge, something I didn't know about the family history that could directly impact me. I didn't know it. So very much I was like pissed at my mom, but then I was also like, I got to figure this out. Like that incident really led me on a path of next level intentionality, where it was like just being successful in business wasn't enough. I'm like, I want to figure out how to be a successful husband and a successful dad, because I was already committed to being a good father. But then I realized like, wow, there's like stuff I don't know that's affecting me. So let me deal with all this crap. So that really led me on an intentional path of, I'm going to create a good legacy. I'm going to break bad family patterns. And yeah, it took quite a while. It was literally, let me do the math here. That was in 2000. It wasn't until 2018 I told that story. So for 18 years, I carried embarrassment. I only told that story one time in a Celebrate Recovery, 12-step room where everybody keeps stuff accountable, and they teach you how to do an inventory of everybody you've ever hurt, who've ever hurt you, and then you do amends. And then my son was only like 12 the first time I did amends, so I didn't go and tell him, sorry, son, I almost killed you when you were 7 months old. I waited till he was 18 and mature enough, and then I had to talk with him about this family pattern and said, look, I want you to learn how to deal with anger productively. And if you ever get really, really angry, like, especially you should know this for when you start dating and get married and have kids. So it's like, I really taught my sons deal with your anger responsibly. But when he got to 18, I told him about that incident and about the family pattern. So I think it's really empowering, Johnny, to take something that normally we would be embarrassed about and afraid of someone to find out about us. And if we've been healed in our own heart enough to be at peace with it and knowing that we're going on a different path, it's so powerful to share that with others. That's why I share it very openly now, because a lot of people are suffering in shame and isolation, and they're self-medicating with porn or alcohol or partying or even business success. A lot of people are self-medicating because of something they haven't dealt with, a heart wound. So I think that's really
that's amazing, man. Yeah,
those are the talks I have with billionaires. We talk about family patterns, and really a lot of them share really personal stuff with me that they don't talk to about anybody else, because I create that openness, that environment of there's no judgment here. I love you as a person. I don't want anything from you. I'm just here to serve you.
Yeah, that's an incredible way to network with these people, and people, we hear it all the time, David, like, oh, these billionaires are people too, treat them just like regular people and whatnot. But that sharing of that type of thing, they have pain, they have shame, they have embarrassment, they have things that they did wrong, the families have done wrong. I have things. So yeah, this, to create that environment is so, and it's so rare. I mean, that's the thing. It's like, it's so uncommon that this kind of thing is, we can talk about these things. I don't care what culture it is. It's not common in any culture, from anything that I've ever read. It's not like it's a Western thing. Like it's not, I mean, there's lots of different variations and different things, but it's very rare that cutting across cultures to be there to open that up.
Yeah, that's a worldwide challenge. In Asia, a lot, this guy, friend of mine, he had a meeting with a bunch of Japanese guys, and he talked about this topic. And a lot of these Japanese guys are like, they're like, I've never been affirmed by my father, or my dad never told me he loves me. So this is a worldwide thing. It's not just a Western thing. You're 100% right.
Amazing. So yeah, so going on from that, so I mean, that is just we could stop right there, and people would be like, get so much out of what you've done, how you leverage that. And I'm learning things and thinking about things in my life as well here. So going to the next step, so you, like you said, you started in 2012. You had this you're doing all these probably look pretty impressive business transactions and relationships and all this success. In 2012, you started kind of a journey, and then fast forward us to the last couple of years in your life. What things have that led to, and what new opportunities has that led to, and what things do you see now, as all that has happened in the past and you've worked through that?
Yeah, so my business journey, 04 to 08, I did real estate full time. Went from being an X-ray tech to 4 or 5 years later, I bought a Lamborghini Diablo. And by the way, I bought that for my son when he was 6 years old for his 6th birthday.
Wow.
He saw one at the auto show when he was asking me what it was, and I'm like, that's a Lamborghini. I'm like, when I was a kid, the Countach was what everybody had on their poster. Yeah. And that was the next one. So he's like, I'm gonna get a car like that one day. So I bought it for him for his 6th birthday. Published my book in 08, did like 50, 60 TV radio shows for that. So, but then after the 08, all my money was in real estate in Metro Detroit. So Metro Detroit was down 70%, worst market in all of the United States. So we went bankrupt. I had debt on my properties, and so I was definitely over leveraged, and I learned an important lesson there. But interestingly enough, I love the Philippines, and in all my publicity, I would just naturally promote the Philippines. I lived there at 10 years old as a missionary, by the way, too. So
okay. Oh, wow.
After I got married, I went there. I started going there. I was a kid. So the summer I was 8, I lived with the Eskimos in Alaska. The summer I was 10, lived in the Philippines, and I really fell in love with Filipino culture. Yeah. So 12, people started to just reach out to me from the Philippines about gold deals, because they would see my publicity stuff online, on the internet, and researched and found out most people were breaking the law. So with like 2 or 3 tweaks in their procedures, they could be all legally compliant. And
is this global law? Sorry, Dave, is this like global law, Filipino law, or USA law? Which laws are we violating?
They were breaking local law. There are world laws around gold, but this is just like domestic. They weren't like exporting it necessarily. They were with internationals, more just domestic. So, and I've read a lot of Mike Maloney stuff. I was already buying gold and silver for myself. Goldsilver.com is his website, Mike Maloney. So, stuff by Jim Rickards, Robert Kiyosaki, they all talk about what is real money, sound money. I had learned about Mises Institute and Austrian economics versus what a lot of economics subscribe to in America. So knowing what sound money is, I realized, wow, a lot of people started offering to sell me gold from the Philippines, which was wild. There's like these crazy avid Japanese gold treasure hunters. Because, I don't know if you know this, in World War II, the Japanese showed up in Singapore, and all these Chinese and Thai and Vietnamese and everybody, Koreans, who thought they all thought Singapore was the safest place to keep your gold. And then Japan showed up and took all of their gold out of the vaults. And so they took that gold, some in Japan, some in the Philippines, other places. So there's literally, to this day, treasure hunters who are looking for, they call it Yamashita gold. Yamashita was the general who ruled the Philippines during World War II. So it's craziness. Like, if you think about the movie National Treasure, there's like 5,000 guys digging holes in the ground all over the Philippines looking for this buried Japanese gold. It's insane. So out of that, I ran across that a lot when I published my second book and did.
That's incredible, man.
In 2012. So from 2012 to today, what was wild was at the end of the trip, I met the owner of what used to be the largest producing gold mine in all of Asia, not just the Philippines, in all of Asia. And we maintained a good relationship. We stayed in touch. I referred him to several people. I mean, this is a mine with like $12 billion of gold in the ground. So that was beyond my scope of thinking at the time, Johnny. I could not imagine myself managing an asset worth $12 billion. Like, it was just beyond something I was aspiring to do or thought I was capable of doing. But as I went on that heart healing journey I talked about from 2012, when I had that realization, what am I doing, risking my life,
correct,
apart from my wife and my kids. And then I published my third book, Beyond Billions, in 2018, and talked to 117 billionaires in the last 4 years. It was pretty wild because my best friend died in January of this year. And he used to work on multi-billion-dollar infrastructure projects in the Philippines. I'm godfather to 2 of his kids. And I believe so much in legacy. I'm like, God, help me have a bigger vision to make a bigger impact to honor Eris's legacy. Like, I want to honor his legacy. And the idea that God gave me was tokenize gold while it's in the ground. Like, I know Chris Larson, I know some of the richest guys in crypto. I know a couple of people have made $1 billion plus in Bitcoin. And then I know like a billionaire who owns a gold bullion bank and another one who owns a mine. So out of the 117 billionaires I talked to, the 3 I know the best, those are the areas they're involved in: mining, gold, and tokenization, Ripple.
Holy smokes, man! So just kind of connecting.
It's sort of me how it all came together.
So you were inspired by King Solomon. Obviously, the Bible is filled with incredible amounts of gold, and it talks about gilding the temple and all this armament and cups. And then you go to the Philippines for different reasons, for missionary work, but then there's just kind of the story and legacy of gold. And there just has to be gold. And then you start connecting with billionaires through all this legacy work, and then these people that you know the best, like you said, are into various vertical aspects of mining and bullion and things like that. That's just like a wild, incredible story of dot connecting there, of you just kind of came together or kept converging to one thing.
Right. That's why I would encourage people watching, if they're on their entrepreneurial journey. In my 20s, I bought everything you could buy off of it, infomercial, and then joined MLMs, and that was very helpful. Like, MLMs are great for learning personal development and communication skills, and for some people, like, that industry is a perfect fit for them. But I just realized I like innovating, and I always like building stuff. So I just realized by the time I was 30, like, I needed to build my own thing. So I am not the kind of person to buy a franchise. Like, I will not follow a system. That's just boring as crap to me. I like to build systems, but then I like to tinker and keep innovating with them. But yeah, it was neat how, if you ever feel like I don't know what I'm doing and I'm like this area of business, I'm going to work on this, like, just keep there's a concept, prosper where you're planted. Like, if you're feeling called to do something and you want to do something, do that thing with all your might. And then I would say give it at least a few years before you jump to another thing. Some people, like, every 6 months or every year, they're jumping to another thing. And you got to give yourself time to learn an industry and to develop some excellence to really start getting traction and get momentum. So for me, it was neat how the stuff I did in my, real estate full time, and then, like you said, all these different connections I made, how nothing was wasted. Because right now, when God gave me that idea at the beginning of this year, tokenize gold in the ground, I did what Solomon says. I built a team of counselors. Wisdom is found in a multitude of counselors. Success is guaranteed in a multitude of counselors. Got confirmation of the idea. A guy who advised the SEC for 6 years on crypto regulation. His sister's the number 2 person at Apple. He told me, like, this has more utility than any other crypto project I've raised money for. A guy who's the ex-head of the SEC I got introduced to advise us.
That's incredible.
We have a guy who's hunted down terrorists on our security team. On the gold side of things itself, we have some amazing, experienced, skilled people. We have like right now 16 billion of gold under contract and another 4 billion of gold we can buy, people waiting to sell us gold. And I had a guy offer me $2 billion of funding a couple months ago, a guy from New York that works with one of the 20 richest billionaires. I won't name drop, but you definitely will know who that billionaire is.
That's incredible.
They have as much name recognition as Elon Musk. They're just not as rich as Elon Musk. So it's very, very humbling just to see proof of concept, but all of my life experience came together to this point, and I'm 48 years old. So
that's amazing, man. Can you walk us through carefully, not the words not carefully, but just like in a very basic, like, a first grade level here, what does tokenization of gold mean? So like, there's gold and there's crypto and the blockchain, all this kind of stuff. Break it down for for us here, so I could just understand it at a very basic level. I always like to blow up like, oh yeah, I understand it, and I've read tons of stuff on Bitcoin, but but set that aside. Break it down for us so we understand what we're talking about here. What the kind of the essence of what you're doing is.
Yeah, certainly. So if you look at I've been buying Bitcoin since it was like $400 a coin, and I think that was 14 or 15. I've been paying my workers in the Philippines in Bitcoin since then. Like I literally Bitcoin.
Wow.
So they would always convert it to pesos. Some of my workers said, man, I wish I would have left some of it in Bitcoin. But anyways, I almost bought it when it was $17 a coin in 2012, right? When I literally, like the month I came back from the Philippines from that business trip, I almost bought someone that was $17 a coin, but it was very technical back then. Like you had to put it on a thumb drive and write down your keys. And it was very technical, very easy to lose the money.
Yes.
And I did not feel I had enough technical knowledge to do it. But tokenization is basically, there's a blockchain and there's a ledger. Part of what the challenge is, if you leave, tokenization allows you to create a ledger where there's a record of what is here, right? There's a ledger of transactions. All banks have ledgers. Most businesses have ledgers, right? But all these ledgers, they don't communicate. There's no universal accepted standard amongst ledgers. So like a Bitcoin or a lot of these other coins, they created as a ledger standard, a record of all these transactions that was accepted universally. And therefore it created more trust about, whatever the tokenization mechanisms for their ledger. So tokenization is, when you offer tokens to people, that's like offering someone to be able to buy something that's recorded on a ledger. Okay, so that's what blockchain is in a ledger, in just really, really simple terms. Excuse me, this is sort of weird. My son is messaging. I'm just gonna give me 10 seconds.
Oh, sure,
I'm just gonna tell him we're on this talk, and I'm gonna call him back. My kid called me 3 times.
Yeah, man.
So I'm on an interview. I'm gonna call you back in about 20 minutes. Okay, I'll call you back. Thank you. My family, we have a communication protocol. They know I never answer my phone. I schedule everything, but they know to call 2 or 3 times in a row if something's important. So I want to make sure there was an emergency. Thank you. So, so basically, tokenization.
So that's what tokenization is, and then
every coin you can think of.
Yeah.
They have a ledger and they have tokenization. There are ledgers that don't have tokens attached to them, but every token that's in the crypto world has a ledger that backs it up. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Yeah. And then somehow we need to connect this like this big hill.
So we're like tokenizing gold. The gold industry is gold coins and gold bars, like you see in the movie The Italian.
Yeah.
Right. Or in Goldfinger, where they had the fight in the Fort Knox, right, in the Goldfinger movie.
Yeah.
Him and the Japanese dude. So basically, the biggest challenge that the crypto world has is that there is nothing tangible, physical, backing up the value of tokens. Now, Bitcoin is the most trusted because there's only going to be 21 million of them. So it's a finite supply.
Right. And it's hard to make more of. So like literally it's like the definition of hard money in that sense is like, I just can't go out and do the backyard and print more, just make some more up. It's very, very, it takes a lot of energy.
So I'm going to show you 2 things.
There's a forcing
tangible
function.
Things help people get concepts, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Up until 71, when Nixon closed the gold window, any government could convert their debt into gold from dollars. If they were holding dollars, they could convert it to gold with the Fed. So up until 1971, all money in the world was backed by gold. It's really important for people to understand that. This is the first time in the history of the world that every currency issued by a government is fiat. Fiat means there's nothing backing it up. It's just like you can print as much as you want. So this is not a real pure gold coin, but this is a gold coin with King Solomon on it. And these are like all the names of God in Hebrew on the back of it. But that I like to keep that on my desk because gold is real money, and that has been accepted as money by people through all of human history. I mean, even going back for the last 6,000 years, like in Genesis chapter 3, gold is mentioned as valuable.
Yes.
Now, here is a $10 billion bill from Zimbabwe from 2008. I always like to carry these in my pocket. I always like to carry on 20 to 30 billion of change in my pocket in case I run out of cash. That bill is to remind you, never keep your money in all of one country's currency, because any government can get foolish and start overprinting, and you get mega inflation. Now, that doesn't just happen in places like Argentina, help me out,
Venezuela, Zimbabwe.
Yeah, it doesn't just happen places like Zimbabwe. It happened in Germany after World War I. They had hyperinflation, their money became worthless. In my book, Treasure Islands, there's a picture of German kids playing with the huge pile, like a pyramid of Deutschmarks, like 3 feet tall. They were using it as Legos. That's how worthless the Deutschmarks were. They use them as toys.
We also those pictures in history books when we were growing up, David, as well, about the wheelbarrows of money from that time.
Exactly.
Hyperinflation.
Yes. It's better to heat your house with it in the fireplace than to use it as money. The Deutschmarks were so worthless. So any fiat currency can become worthless. So going back to tokenization and gold, the idea came to me after the FTX implosion. It just became very apparent that bringing tangibility of gold, the fact that there is only so much gold in the world, you cannot make any more of it.
Right.
Like the amount of gold in the world is the amount of gold in the world. That is why governments have always backed their currencies with gold. It's the rarest, most valuable precious metal there is. So to me, marrying and tokenizing the gold while it's in the ground, this is the innovative part. All gold bullion that central banks own, it is in vaults in the Federal Reserve of New York and different Federal Reserve buildings around the world. I got a tour of all the gold and silver in the Central Bank of the Philippines.
Seriously, wow.
Yeah, one of the guys I interviewed.
Was that impressive? Was that pretty cool? Yeah,
it was really cool. Yeah, like it was really cool. Like very neat to be like in a room like in the movie Goldfinger, seeing all these gold bars and silver.
Oh, that's amazing.
But yeah, I interviewed the guy that was number 2 head of the metals division of the Central Bank in the Philippines for my book Treasure Islands. When I published it, I brought him a copy, and he gave me a tour. It was really, really cool. I had to go through like 5 levels of security checks before I got in. Those central banks are really, really secure buildings. So so because all that gold is above ground, it's been mined, and it's in vaults. This is the innovative thing that God gave me to do. Why not tokenize gold while it's in the ground? There's about 3 different ways to assay gold. Assay means measure and verify what's in the ground. Yeah. And the idea that I got was, if you take 3 or 4 different ways of assaying gold, usually you dig holes every 25 square meters, like a couple 100 meters down.
Just a borehole, just drill down.
You drill a hole like an inch by an inch. It's not super big.
How deep? How deep you need? Okay.
You go down, you take the dirt sample out, and then you take it to a lab and they process it, and they figure out how much gold is there, and they extrapolate how many grams of gold are there in that section that we pulled per metric ton. That's how they measure it. Per metric ton of dirt, for every 2,000 pounds of dirt, how many grams of gold? This is the measurement they do. So we're adding satellite and laser. There's some really cool technologies. During the 80s, remember, if you've heard about history books, Star Wars, we were developing systems to shoot Russian nuclear missiles out of the sky.
Yeah.
They developed their own version of that too, which was lasers. So after the Cold War ended, they're like, we developed this technology to shoot American nuclear missiles out of the sky. What are we going to do with this? Some Russian scientist was like, what if we point these things into the ground? They can literally measure with satellite and laser exactly what's in the ground very accurately to 5,000 meters. That is 3 miles into the ground, roughly.
That's deep.
It's very deep.
That's very deep.
So this is the innovative thing that we're doing. We're going to take the traditional way of measuring what's in the ground, overlay it with satellite and laser, and we want to create a gold standard in the tokenization world of, hey, look, this is a token backed by gold that is still in the ground, and our value proposition to the world is there's not enough gold above ground that is liquid in backing up currencies. We need more gold backing up the value of currencies that we use in business with each other.
Yeah.
So we want to free up, 50, 100, maybe even a few $100 billion worth of liquidity for the blockchain, tokenization world. Because to me, you should, right now with inflation going on globally, Johnny, you should have some physical gold, have some physical silver, have some dollars, have some Deutschmarks, have some euros, have some yen, but you should also have some digital gold. So that's what we're bringing to the marketplace. That's gold that's easy to buy easy to sell and easy to spend. Because if you have $100,000, say you're worth 10 million and you go and you want to put $500,000 of your money into gold bullion, I mean, you could literally buy one gold bar like that big, and that's worth $500,000.
Yeah.
If you want to spend that thing, it's a pain in the ass. You don't want to cut a sliver off to spend 10 grand. You got to take it to a refinery. You got to sell the whole bar, or take it to a refinery and have them melt it into smaller bars. It takes a lot of time and a lot of effort. And then you got to secure it and insure it. It's a lot of work. Our idea is, if you want to buy $500,000 of gold, go buy $400,000 of bullion and buy $100,000 of our coin, gold plus coin, we call it, GPC.
Yeah.
And if you want to spend 10 grand of it, or 1,000, or even the whole 100,000, you could spend it or sell it literally within 2 minutes. So we want to create a marketplace of very easy to use and spend gold. That's what we're
doing. That linkage then between the, like you said, and you've said it a couple of times, but again, just like, I think it's kind of like I'm realizing it, and maybe the audience is realizing it as well, is that linkage, of course, between, you know, gold that's still on the ground, not in vaults around the world, Federal Reserve buildings, but, and then also, of course, the ease and adaptability of a blockchain ledger, you know, coupled with, you know, actual gold, which, like you said, is combining, you know, you could say the latest, you know, intervention from the brilliant minds of today with, you know, a historical benchmark of value, which has been gold.
Yes. The other thing too about it is to realize, when I say buy gold bullion, you want to take physical possession of that gold, the gold you buy. The World Gold Council estimates a lot of rich guys, if they're worth 10 million and their stock guys like, hey, we're having major inflation, let's put $1 million of your 10 million portfolio into gold. They're like, okay, yes, let's do that. They go buy SKRs. These are called safekeeping receipts, backed by gold in vaults. They're all over the world. You know, there's some in the US, they're in Europe, they're in Asia. The World Gold Council estimates that for every 1 ounce of gold in a vault, that 40 to 90 people have been sold SKRs backed by that ounce of gold. That means only one of them can take physical possession of it.
Are you for real?
The rest have been defrauded.
Oh my God. You mean, so it's like how banks lever up? What's that?
Fractional reserve lending.
Yeah, fraction. Yeah, that.
They have fractional reserve.
That's what they've done that with the gold?
Yes, they have fractional reserve gold. And so most people do not buy SKRs, no matter how convenient it seems according to your financial planner. You want to buy physical. So I recommend going to a local coin dealer. You can buy American Eagles, gold and silver Eagles. You know, basically, by the way, another best practice is you can, you want to tell your bank ahead of time. You know, if you want to withdraw $10,000 cash from the bank, you want to give them a heads up. But if you take $10,000 out of your bank account, you can go buy $9,900 of gold and silver without even giving your coin dealer your ID in the United States, with total privacy.
Wow.
This is the thing a lot of people don't realize. If you go to find a local coin dealer that will just sell you the gold and silver Eagles for cash, and all they have to do is record that they sold it, they do not need your ID. That's a totally private transaction. So this is a smart way to buy it. You could go do 10 trips to your coin dealer and buy $100,000 worth of gold and silver coins.
Amazing, man. That's really
buy a fireproof safe. They're only you and your spouse, and maybe write it down where it is in the combination and give that to your estate planner. You know, open this when I die, so your kids can get to it. But those are best practices. I talk about that in my book, Treasure Islands. But what we're doing is, if you're worth 10 million and your guy says, let's put a million into it, $1 million of physical gold and silver, it's going to fill up a safe. And if you buy Eagles, and you're going to have to buy a gun safe, one of those big ones that'll hold shotguns. And it's very heavy and it's not portable. So our value proposition to someone who's going to buy $1 million of gold bullion is buy like 900,000 or 800,000 of the physical, and buy a couple 100,000, 100 to 200,000 of our gold plus coin, because it's spendable. We're going to we're actually buying our own commodity bank. So we're going to issue people Visa MasterCards, just like crypto.com does, and people can easily spend their gold holdings. So we're going to allow, you know, like part of your money is backed by real gold, just like US dollars used to be pre 1930 when they, you know, when the Federal Reserve changed things. And
do you think there's going to be, do you think there'll be pushback? Do you think there'll be pushback from the Fed on this? Like who's the people that will be angry or pissed at what you're doing, David?
So Johnny, there's already about 8 different gold-backed crypto tokens right now. They are all backed by above ground gold that is in vaults.
Okay.
So there's still the risk of confiscation, like the Japanese did in World War II. Any gold can be taken. That's why I say put it in a safe where only you and your spouse know where it is, right? You want to have real secrecy and privacy of where your wealth is. What we're doing is we're bringing new liquidity to the marketplace. We're not trying to compete with the Fed. You're never going to hear me say anything bad about central bankers. I know some central bankers that are on the Basel committee.
Yeah.
I shared the stage at this family office conference with one of the Rockefellers, and went to another conference with like 3 central bankers, some of them that go on media very often in the US, and a guy who's like one of the leaders on the Basel committee. Basel, for people who don't know, is 3 times a year, bankers meet, leaders of banking world meet in Basel, Switzerland, and decide policy that every bank in the world has to comply with. So in last quarter, central banks bought more gold than they ever have in history. So it's very instructive. You should always model what central banks do. Don't do what they say, do what they do. So if they're buying gold like crazy, it's smart to buy gold like crazy yourself. So yeah, we're not competing with them for existing supply of money. We want to bring real value, real tangible value to the tokenization space, to the crypto space that sorely needs real value. So yeah, that's what we're doing.
Awesome. Well, let's this has been just one of the most amazing podcasts I've done so far, and I've done 60 or something like that. So this has been amazing. We'll have to wrap it up here, just to respect your time and to keep the audience from getting from wandering here. What is you said your last book was Beyond Billions, and then so what? Just give us a quick synopsis what that's about, and then what's the best way of getting connected with you with what you're doing and where you're going.
Yeah, that book is basically the subtitle is create a multi-generational legacy of success, modeling King Solomon's trillionaire wisdom. So what's beyond billions?
Who's the audience? Who's the audience for that?
Audience are people who are entrepreneurial, who want to make a big impact on the world, and they want their impact to last beyond themselves. Sadly, over 95% of wealthy people, multimillionaire and billionaires families, fall apart because of the money, because of the lack of passing on values and their spirit of real unity in the family. So oftentimes the wealth, the thing that people build to improve their family, improve the world, actually ends up destroying their families. So that's why I wrote the book. I think it's criminal that there's not enough focus on next level wisdom and how to pass on your values to the next generation of your family. So yeah, I tell people exactly in the book how to create a plan for 3 to 5 generations of success in your family, and how to really strategically pass on your values, create a culture of affirmation, which is very, very important, so that your kids can wisely steward what you leave them, whether you leave them $100,000 or you leave them $100 billion. So that's what Beyond Billions is about. Best way to get a hold of me, davidroynewby.com is my website. That's ROYNEWBY. That's also,
and I'll put that link in the podcast notes as well. But yes, go ahead.
Yeah, my name's David Roy Newby on all the socials: Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, all of them. I'm at David Roy Newby. So
amazing, man. Yeah. So well, thank you,
and
David.
goldpluscoin.com is the website for the token.
Awesome. Yeah. And hopefully people will, when they navigate to any of your socials or your website, they will see this your gold coin offering, or your ledger back coin as well, or your gold back.
Yeah, it's not available to the public yet. We're still finishing development of the token.
When do you think that will be available?
We should have it rolled out to the public second quarter of 23.
Second quarter of 23. All right. Beautiful. Well, okay, everyone here at the Investing Stuff You Should Know podcast, we thank you for giving this another listen. This has been an amazing journey and story that David has shared. Please, I encourage you to check out the resources he has online. Give us a course, and we always appreciate your spending time with us. Give us a like, a listen, a review at the podcast, and we'll see you next time. David, thank you.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me, Johnny.